属でも何でもする。だから。
わかりました。
All right, so say what you will, but I feel like I feel. This Villainess anime here that we've gotten so far is one of the best anime of the season, bar none, in my personal opinion. Through the first 3 episodes, and I would say episode 4, 5, and 6 have been mostly okay. And I think one of my biggest annoyances of the anime was really just, it kind of went away on episode 2 and 3, and then it kind of came back in 4 and 5, and then now, especially, like, this episode was really, really bad at it. And once again, it's just that our main character is plagued by things that aren't going to come into play. Now, and I'm sure you have read enough manhwas and mangas and watched enough anime that are centered around villainesses and princesses and people isekaiing into their favorite novel. I've read so many different novels, you know, so many different manhwas of these things happening, and in every single time they tend to know the future, and in most cases things do play out in the cycle of events of the story, but the key factor is them not following what their character did in the story, just like Princess Pride is doing here in this story. She knows what could happen, but the nuances of her decisions and who she is now, not who she could have been or could, you know, how she was originally written, but how she is now, is drastically affecting the story. She, you know, wasn't the original candidate for queen. She is now. She wasn't loved by her sister. She is now. She wasn't loved by Still. She is now. She wasn't loved by Arthur. She is now. She didn't meet the bad guy that she worked with later in life within the story. Now she met them later. Now she has a pawn who's super powerful, right? The head of the knights wasn't alive in the original story because he died, and that was a thing that sprung Arthur into becoming a knight. Now he's sprung on pride, and that's what's getting him there. But this knight, she now has another pawn who's extremely powerful and dedicated to her because she saved his freaking life. She's herself extremely powerful. You know, so you have all of these things that are just a whole new story, but she continually suffers in silence by herself, mulling over, stressing over, anxiety takes over her of things that could happen that were originally set to come. And at this point, she's lived in Pride's body so long that she's never lost control. So it's not like she's suddenly going to do that in the future, you know, or anything like that. Like, she has control over her actions completely now. But she's constantly worried about, well, in 7 years, I'm going to be evil. It's like, well, it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. Like, you took over this story. You are still in the book, but the pages are blank and you're filling them out now, as opposed to you have read them or reading them like you were before. So, you know, that's just my biggest ick of the show, is just this constant like, oh, okay, we're over it. I get it. You feel bad, you know, and everything else, like all the little things that she sees and everything else that she remembers are all cutscenes that you saw in a video game, right? Like, I don't know if you ever played a bunch of like visual novel games or otome games, but they're not exactly like, you know, super high budget. Maybe you play a Danganronpa, or I think I have it on my desk here. Maybe you play like, you know, like a Raincoat that is a little more than a visual novel that looks pretty good. You know, maybe you play AI of the Insomnia Files that's a little more interactive than your standard VN. But based on what she said, this was just like a visual novel otome game. And the memories that she has were just these awful cutscenes that were probably just still images that she saw. So that's a whole nother ball game and another factor, you know what I mean? So I don't know. It's just one of the things I really don't really enjoy. But this specific episode, you know, there's not a whole lot that happened. Really, the main episode centered around Vel, I think his name was, and basically the guy who has the control or manipulation over Earth. And it was all about her passing judgment on him and doing her first, you know, queenly thing as a princess. She ended up passing judgment, putting him under like a slave contract, basically an obedience contract, But she ended the conversation through, half the episode with letting him go with two things. If her sister, if Tiara is ever in trouble, he needs to come save her, period. And if he ever feels that his life is generally threatened by something that wasn't caused by him and he feels it in his heart, he can come seek out Princess Pride. So basically, he got the green light to come and work for Pride again sometime in the future. And how she will use him in the future is going to be drastically different than her story. Then the rest of the episode was just a bunch of frolicking between Arthur and Stale and Tiara and Pride. And the guys just got all motivated and all juiced up again. So, I mean, really, that's all that happened this episode. So it's a very transitional episode for me. Just an okay episode overall. I think it's fine. I think if we were watching this again, and I say this for a lot of anime, but if we were watching this in, a chunk of 12 episodes, I wouldn't even think twice about this. I'd just move on to the next episode and the next thing. But because we're in a situation where we're watching anime together weekly, these episodes kind of tend to stick out and they suck a lot because it's kind of like, okay, well, I need that next jolt of, pump me up. I need that next jolt of something, and this just didn't have it for me personally. Again, wasn't bad, very watchable, just okay, very transitional for me. So that's all that happens this episode. There might be a couple little nuances that I might have missed, but really those are the main things. Those are the main two things. Frolic and Flowers, and Val and Judgment, her first queenly act, and all that stuff. So anyways, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys thought about episode number 666, the devil. Let me know what you guys thought about episode number 6 in the comments down below, my friends. I'm gonna see you guys next week.